Well, we have a lot to talk about this week, so I'm going to go through it very rapidly. I'm not going to elaborate on a lot of it. I see that the European Union has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Quite honestly, most of the Nobel Peace Prizes that have been issued over the years have gone to communists or international socialists. There are notable exceptions, but they are the exception. Now the EU as an organization is getting it, and of course the president of the European Commission is just pleased as punch. He's Manuel Barroso. Well, it just so happens that Barroso of Portugal got his political start by being in the communist terrorist underground in Portugal. He was a Maoist. In other words, the most violent of the communists in those years. He was trained in China to be a terrorist. And so now he is the head of the European Union, just as the terrorist is the head of Brazil, and on and on and on. We could go through a litany of countries that are no longer communist, you understand. It's just that all these ex-communists are in control. So much for that. Sometimes I think I'm going a little bit batty when I see things in the same newspaper that don't seem to quite gel. For instance, in the New York Times this last week, Leon Panetta, who is the Secretary of Defense, warned that the United States was facing the possibility of a cyber Pearl Harbor and was increasingly vulnerable to foreign computer hackers who could dismantle the power grid, transportation system, financial networks, and government. Well, maybe it would help if it did the last one, but the rest of it would really hurt. At any rate, he cites countries like China and Russia and Iran. You mean China that we always have good business relationships with? You mean Russia that we're trying to open up now, just like we opened up China and we've been told by the U.S. State Department, oh yes, in the past they've been a problem, but now we have to trade with them? That Russia, that's the country that Panetta is worried about in the way of cyber attacks and so on and so forth. If he's worried about cyber attacks, they'd be doing something about it. But you see, what they do is, here for instance, Britain, in the same paper, welcomes 2 Chinese telecom suppliers. So they're letting, the Brits are letting this in. Now keep in mind now, this is the worldwide net that we've got to worry about this thing being all intertied and the internet. So this is a problem that comes into play in regard to cyber war. Japanese company in talks to buy stake in Sprint. So here again, it seems to me, I recall that the Japanese had something to do with this Pearl Harbor that Panetta is talking about. So you see, we're bringing in organizations, and I have no problem with the Japanese per se, don't get me wrong. It's just that if they're worried about this, what are the solutions that they have? Oh, the solution is more control over how you use the internet. That's what it's all about, always is all about when they talk about these crises. Yes, they may be crises. It has been hacking into the government. We even experience it from time to time. And those are problems. But we don't need legislation to control it by government. The original intent of the Constitution was the freedom of communication. There were only 2 forms of communication at the time. It was freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Every form of communication since that time has been controlled by the federal government. The telegraph, the telephone, the television, the radio, and now they're trying to get a hold of the internet. So that's, it flies in the face of the First Amendment's intent. You recall that last week I mentioned that it's pretty obvious that the New York Times has no love for the Republican Party. It's interesting, therefore, the following week when I see this, and this is in the front of a section of the New York Times, and it says, Romney's go-to economist. And it's a backhanded way of complimenting this man. I mean, after all, why would you have this big of a of a portrait having been painted. They could have used a photograph, it would have been a lot cheaper, to bring out this man's expertise and to build him up again in a backhanded way. Well, it just so happens that Glenn Hubbard, this go-to economist for Romney, is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. We'll leave it to you to decide what's going on there. How many of you noticed, by the way, that the recent Romney rallies have had this, and I don't know if it shows up well or not, but it says ObamaCare. It says, well, actually it says repeal and replace ObamaCare on a Romney poster. Repeal and replace. So you see, they can use the mantra of Obamacare needs to be repealed, but what are they going to replace it with? Romneycare? Why does it need to be replaced? Well, I can expand on that. It needs to be replaced simply because it fits into the overall agenda of those who want to bring about a North American Union and ultimately submerge our country under the United Nations. I'm not going to go any further than that, other than to say in order to merge all these health systems, we have to do away with a free enterprise thing instead of having a socialist organization. We have to have a socialist organization to merge with other socialist healthcare systems in Canada, etc. Free enterprise can't merge with socialism. So that's the purpose behind it. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it's called, as long as it's in place. And so we see that here we've got a situation where we're going to get rid of one that's obvious, and we're going to replace it with what? Undefined, ill-defined when it is even discussed. So leave it to you. Meanwhile, as we said in one of the previous segments, that the history of voting in this country finally got to the point where the government started to print the ballots, called the Australian ballot system, in the 1880s. As a result, they were able to keep people off the ballot. And that's what they're doing with the Libertarian Party candidate now. And who's behind this? The Republicans. Those virtues of liberty. They do not want the Libertarian candidate on the ballot, so they're doing everything they can to keep him off. So much for freedom of speech and voting and everything else in this country. The Republican Party has a great deal to answer when it comes to keeping people off the ballot, keeping candidates off the ballot, even within their own party. We've discussed those things before, but it's becoming a real problem. Something that warmed the cockles of my heart this last weekend is our local paper with the headline on the front page on Sunday called "The New Normal." Well, it seems as though the new normal now is gay marriage, women who never get married and have lots of kids and go to the local food bank and get food. The new normal is the welfare system. It is the system where the people at work pay for everybody that doesn't work. That's the new normal. It's not normal at all. It's abnormal. It's killing this country. But as long as we can get people to think it's okay and it's legitimate, then we are going to suffer, and this country will suffer as in the long run. A number of things that are kind of bothering me this week. I really am very optimistic, however, sometimes it doesn't seem so. But there is a growing awareness because of all these things. People are beginning to see through these things. And we'll keep bringing them to you as we go forward each week. Till then, we'll see you.